Hey guys, I'm Sun. I'm a privacy and a security researcher, and you're watching The Privacy Guides. Today's episode is going to be about trade-offs. I've just spent a few hours trying to answer as many of your questions as possible on YouTube and by email. And something that really comes out a lot is, Sun, using Little Snitch is so overwhelming. There are a million alerts. Sun, when we set up Firefox the hardened way, all kinds of websites are broken. Sun, Linux is much more private than macOS. Why in the world are you using macOS? I wanted to address a few of those points. Today's episode is not a how-to. It's more of me sharing how I feel about those things and sharing some of the frustration that I have. A lot of the episodes have been problem-solving oriented. Unfortunately, some of the things that I encounter are very hard to solve. So maybe you guys have feedback. If you do, please share it in the comments. First things first, the deeper we get into the privacy and security rabbit hole, the harder things get. There's no easy solution there. There's no silver bullet. A lot of you have been asking what I think about Brave versus Firefox. Brave has a lot of this privacy stuff built in, apparently. I haven't looked into Brave in a pretty long time. Last time I looked at Brave, it didn't feel right, but I'll inquire about that and publish a full episode on that shortly. But in a nutshell, there are no silver bullets. I have a friend and a security researcher that actually has helped in the context of the privacy guides before, Alex, and he's really digging into Windows 10 and how we can harden Windows 10. And I mean, in a nutshell, I think he spent, a few days hardening Windows 10 to a level that he felt was kind of cool. It's a huge amount of work, and that is so incredibly unfortunate. I mean, I can definitely understand why security is something that we all need. Computers are inherently vulnerable to attacks. That's just the nature of things being connected over the internet. But privacy is something that I expect to be there by default. By the way, the reason I decided to create this episode and share this with you is, as a creator, as someone who is passionate about art, design, coding, sharing my knowledge with others on YouTube, one of the things that I use is the Adobe Creative Suite, which, by the way, I pay for. And as a developer, I really believe that paying for apps and software services that we use online is essential. There's a huge amount of work and love that goes into developing those things. That being said, it is disgusting the amount of shit that Adobe installs on our computer. And I'm restraining myself here. It is disturbing that they need to have a whole bunch of daemons running all the time, that they have node scripts running all the time, that their apps are calling home in 5,000 different ways all the time. It is despicable that we cannot use the Adobe Creative Suite offline. That means that we cannot use Little Snitch or any other application layer firewall to block it access to the internet. It has to connect to the internet. And I know Adobe's probably doing this in part because of licensing problems, because everyone is hacking software, cracking software, and using pirated software. And that will likely not change because humans like the idea of a free lunch. And I can relate to that. That being said, the fact that Adobe has to do all of this shit on our computers is disgusting. It's an incredibly invasive practice that has to change. And I think that us together, the fact that we're almost 10,000 on the Privacy Guides community now, I think that the fact that we become vocal about this, the fact that we don't lay down on the floor and accept status quo the way it is, that is how we are going to ignite change. We have to be vocal about this. We have to talk about the fact that using technology privately is overwhelming, and it shouldn't. We have to talk about the fact that everything being free on the internet means that it is backed by advertising. We have to talk about the fact that everyone is pirating everything, and because of this, companies are becoming more and more invasive, and that the ones of us that do pay for apps are penalized because of that. I mean, there are so many trade-offs to using a computer privately, some of which are feasible, and that's the whole point of the Privacy Guide series. I am sharing as much as I can with you guys so that we get to use technology in a privacy-conscious way. Now, there is no way that I'm aware of to use the Adobe Creative Suite that I am paying for on my Mac without bending over backwards and letting Adobe do whatever the F word they want on my computer. In order to use Adobe Premiere, which I use to create these episodes, Adobe forces me to allow the app access to my desktop, to my documents, and my download folder. Even though when I'm editing this, my footage and all important files are not within those paths. That means that Adobe is forcing me to allow their apps to break through compartmentalization that's put in place by macOS. That is unacceptable. I don't know if you guys have ideas on how to mitigate this. The only thing that comes in mind is to use compartmentalization through having multiple different installs of macOS and associated apps on SSDs. Like, this is what I'm doing here in the context of the privacy guides, as I've mentioned in the past. I am using a demo computer, but it's essentially the same hardware, but I am running a separate version of macOS that doesn't have access to my other daily driver because it's encrypted, and I don't log in when in this compartmentalized version of macOS. I could do the same for Adobe Creative Suite, but can you imagine a lot of this reference material is developed using command line or using Visual Studio Code, which, by the way, has its own privacy problems, but all of this is done on a computer. If I had to boot between different computers all the time, it would be such a painful experience, and I'm sure this is the kind of stuff that you guys are talking about. I know some of you said, son, you suggest disabling Firefox Sync, but then if I need a favorite on my smartphone that I created on my desktop, how can I have access to it? Son, you mentioned that on a desktop, we shouldn't have two-factor authentication apps and the password manager. And by the way, this is critical advice, because if your computer's compromised, both, the password and the 2FA token are compromised. But yes, it adds pain, it adds friction in the process. But sometimes I believe that that friction is well worth it. That being said, in the context of Adobe Creative Suite, it's kind of unbearable. And that being said, I'm probably going to end up doing this because I don't see how the whole ecosystem is going to change. I think that what we're doing together, I think that by adding voices to this, we can put pressure to towards those companies so that things change. That being said, I agree. Some of you say that what we're doing is a drop in the ocean, and in some ways it is, but an ocean is made of drops. It's all a question of how many drops decide to fight in the same direction. And that's how revolutions take place. Now, I'm not saying that we should revolt ourselves and do whatever that entails. I'm just saying that we have to keep talking about this. We have to keep being worried about this. To some extent, we have to accept friction and trade-offs. And I will try my best to share with you guys everything that I stumble upon that can make the process easier. But in the context of Adobe, I am kind of clueless. And by the way, I wish I could run Adobe Creative Suite within a virtual machine in VirtualBox or something like this, but performance loss would be incredible. So hopefully some of you have ideas. This is one problem that I haven't been able to solve. So please do share your ideas in the comments. To those of you who are struggling with the fact that following some of those episodes is painful, I promise humans are adaptable. Thankfully, we are adaptable. Things that we believe are necessary because they are convenient, once we forget about that convenience, and it's pretty fast, we get to be very happy, using technology differently. And hopefully we'll find solutions to all of those problems. And that's kind of the purpose of this journey. That's the purpose of my journey as a technologist and as a privacy conscious person. And hopefully together we are going to make this happen. So anyways, that's all I have for you today. I have a whole bunch of content that is coming your way. I have read a lot of your comments, and a lot of this will make its way to future episodes. So thanks so much for sharing your feedback. And yeah, 2021, a new year, tons of time to do more rabbit hole exploration. So again, thanks for being part of the journey. Bye.